Hey everybody, this is Dust for Dust on Gaming. A little bit of Grixis Delver Redux here today. One person or two asked us to replay the deck, so that's what we're going to be doing this evening. Those of you who haven't seen this particular list, this is Bourbon Fox's list. We played it roughly a month or so ago, I think. It's been a little while. So this deck is more kill spell heavy, which is definitely needed in the current formats. Even though humans has waned a little bit, spirits has started to pop up, so that's kind of a deck where you need to have a lot more kill spells and counter spells, especially against their Ether Vial draws, the blue-white Vild especially. Beyond that, you've got 4 Delver Secrets, 4 Snapcaster Mage, a couple Young Pyromancers, and some Delve threats. You have a lot of reliance on your graveyards. That is a thing you have to be concerned about. 4 Serum Visions, 4 Thought Scours, your cantrips. Thought Scour especially performs very well in this deck. Turns on your Search for Azcantas, helps fill your Delve threats. There's a bit of a tension there. But the last round, I very much like the Search for Azcantas in the kind of go long games. A couple copies of Spell Snare. There are quite a few 2-mana spells that matter in Modern. Certain decks like Storm, Affinity, Burn, a lot of these cards get hit by Spell Snare. If you'll notice, there's also not a lot of counter spells in this deck. There's 2 Mana Leaks, a Logic Knot, and a couple of Spell Snares. It's because right now, counter spells, unless you're up against control, generally are not at their best. 4 Lightning Bolt, 4 Fatal Push, couple Terminates. Those are your removal spells in addition to a couple Guns commands and a Murderous Cut. This deck is very much kill spell heavy. 18 lands, you're very much a low to the ground deck. A lot of your spells you're getting played for 2 and 3 mana. Snapcaster Mage is probably your most mana intensive card, at least in the pre-board games. You know, this one costs you anywhere from 3 to 5 mana depending on what you're trying to flash back. Beyond that, you can easily transform into a control deck by removing your Delver of Secrets and kind of tailoring your sideboard as you go along. Sideboard has quite a bit of tools. Game 1, one of your weaknesses is Planeswalkers, hence the couple of Dreadbores in the sideboard. Is it Statcaster for smaller creature decks? I don't really know, Brennan. This is a list that was provided about a month ago. The thing I would say about Tasigur is easier to get down. And this deck can also kind of leverage the card advantage a little bit, unlike a lot of other Tasigur decks. So especially when you're playing the control-ish games in Game 2 and Game 3. So it's kind of a matter of preference. The fact that this deck is playing Murderous Cut and a Logic Knot also kind of dictates the fact that you want to try to ease up on your graveyard a little bit. And then 1 copy of Ceremonious Rejection for any type of colorless decks, you know, Tron, Affinity, Lantern Control, a couple Disdainful Strokes for big mana decks like Tron and Valakut, a couple copies of Thoughtseize for combo-based decks, Collective Brutality for burn, can also bring it in against control, a couple Damnations when you really need to go heavy against things like humans and spirits. Although I suspect it's not that great against spirits because they have a lot of countermeasures. And then one of Counter Squall is kind of your negative choice. So a lot of tools in the sideboard to tailor, and then of course Dampening Sphere because you don't want to lose a Tron, you don't want to lose a Storm. So that said, the Storm matchup is probably fine. I think, if I remember right, last time out we played against Storm, and I think we might have lost. The other deck that can be a little bit tricky is Tron, obviously. You know, we do have a faster clock than most mid-range-ish decks, but Tron still does Tron things, so you need to have cards in the sideboard for it. But, playing some Grixis Delver as soon as the league lets us get into it here. So, got about 2 hours and 20 minutes to try to get through a league before the dogs need walked, so should be enough time. But some of these Delver games, especially in the post-board configurations, can be just like control decks. So, advantage the Delver deck has against control decks is the fact that you have a lot less lands to draw, so you're going to draw a lot more action in the mid-late game. When Kevin Jones was running this list before Just Got Control and whatnot took off in Modern, he was running like a Painful Truths or so in the sideboard. We're on the draw. Yes, hand's pretty reasonable. Even if we're against a spell-based deck, we have a Delver of Secrets to kind of press our early advantage. I think I lead on Steam Vents here. That way we can fetch basic Swamp if we want. Get our Delver out there. Pass. I had to speak of the devil, didn't I? There's a... Okay, we're up against Lantern. That's not good. I haven't seen Lantern much in a while, but that... I mean, we do have some tools for this deck, but a lot of what we're trying to do is, Snapcaster Mage, huh? Snapcaster's fine. I'm probably looking for a third land here. These Fatal Pushes are absolute garbage. Bottom. Another land. Past our opponent here. Pixis. Alright. Codex Shredder. Spell Snare is kind of whatever here. I don't think there's too many things we want to draw with that, so I think we're going to Snapcaster Bolden End Step here. Probably trying to aggressively look for Ensnaring Bridge would be my guess. Probably not going to let us draw that Kolaghan's Command. Unsurprising there. They're fine, anyway. Codex Shredder. Why wouldn't they have played Codex Shredder here? Kind of bizarre. Abrupt Decay is the answer. Snapcaster Mage. Flashback on Bolt. Don't think you really care about any of these cards. does have Snapcaster Mage, wouldn't think. Welcome to the annoyance that is. Guess they can't technically play it this turn, right? Unless their last card in hand's will land. What's up, Space Marine? I really hate playing against Lantern. This is like the deck that I loathe the most. Use Fatal Pushes out of my deck. Use Terminates out of my deck. It's more likely to matter. Disdainful Stroke or Collective Brutality? Yeah, Cruel Control is good. Or interesting, at least. I just absolutely hate playing against Lantern. Especially when I don't have any additional, artifact hate in my sideboard. Like, normally these lists have, like, a Vandal Blast or not Ancient Grudge, another Kolaghan's Command in the sideboard. The way this particular list is set up. So Stroke potentially counters Whir of Invention. I guess that's okay. No, I'd rather have Brutality. Brutality at least is a shock, if nothing else. I don't hate Grixis. It's not my favorite color combination, but I like Grixis just fine. Alright, so getting Watery Grave here with the Mountain. Delver. These Spell Snares even have a target in my deck? Or in their deck? No Lantern on one, huh? No. Should actually probably have played Mountain there. But I can just bolt their face. Probably losing Kolaghan's Command or Snapcaster Mage here. Well, this stream will probably run until 9:30 or 10, and then I'm probably doing another stream after like 10:30 or 11. Yep, unsurprisingly, we'll lose Kolaghan's Command here. Second Bridges game. Alright, that was fun. I truly hate Lantern Control. Basically, if you want to beat Lantern Control with any kind of non-hyper-aggressive deck, you pretty much have to have like Ancient Grudge or something in your deck that they can't easily get rid of. Even with Kolaghan's Command in our hand with a Delver on one, we got locked out both games, so that second, we still had a chance if they didn't find the second bridge pretty quickly. Because unless they kept us off of 5th land the entire game, we had Snapcaster Kolaghan's Command to get rid of the bridge, at least temporarily. Hopefully we have enough of a board presence at that point to just kill them. But Lantern Control does Lantern Control things and makes life extremely miserable for people. Especially since this deck is more geared towards creatures and creature combat. Don't have enough tools to combat that, probably. Lantern's one of those decks that you put together over time, so I think Island Delver. Looks like we're up against either humans or Death and Taxes. Which definitely means we want to get our Serum Visions, sure. Alright, so guess we get Blood Crypt here, although it does kind of hamstring us on available mana here. Spell Snare and Thought Scour. Probably bottoming both. Spell Snare would be a lot better if we had the mana up this turn, so maybe I should just fetch blue and ignored one of my other colors. Thopter, huh? Hopefully we hit our land here. Instead we land the Snapcaster Mage. Doesn't feel like we're in that good of a spot, if I'm being completely honest here. Squadron Hawk? Ugh. We are not off to the best start in the world, this league. Alright, third land. What am I grabbing here? Another blue source, obviously. Probably Watery Grave here. Start attacking with Delver. Target. Tech Edge is annoying. Another Squadron Hawk. See if they have another one in their deck to go get. Looks like the answer was yes, they just didn't want to discard the hand size. Alright, so Soul Sisters. No, it's Modern Janshavik. I think I'm going to attack with Delver here and see what they do. It's unlikely they're going to block with... try to double block. Nope. Didn't think so. Is it just Young Pyromancer play... That's just Young Pyromancer here. Hold up Logic Knot and Thought Scour. Do I care about Thraben Inspector? I don't think so here. Jump block, keep my life total as high as possible. Search for his Kanta, huh? Probably interested in that lightning bolt. Bourbon Fox was a viewer that submitted this deck like a month or so ago. We've already played this deck once. Let's see what they do here. So they have 3 mana open. Cannot let that card resolve. Other Squadron Hawk would be slightly annoying here, but it's kind of whatever. One red mana is going to be kind of an annoyance here. See how they decide to block. Going for the double block, huh? So do I just let this trade happen and try to grind them out? Or... Huh. Good lord with the Martyrous Hands. I just accidentally let this resolve. Oh well. That gives them a huge life buffer, but we might be able to grind them out here. That was kind of foolish. These lists with only one black source, which kind of sucks. Kind of a free block. We get to see what their hand is now. Gideon, Oblivion Ring. Oh dear. There are certain cards you want to exile over, because it's not the easiest to trigger Revolt in Standard. So let's see what we find here. I'd like to put that in my graveyard. Yes, I would. I like Transform. Yes, I would. Snapcaster Mage is a good one. Turn target creature card from graveyard. Turn a Tasker, shatter that. Black, that. Ranger, yes. Wow, all the heavy hitters. And can also deal with Scarab God too, with combination with other cards. I don't know if we're going to be able to grind this out. This is going to be a little rough. The Champion of Wits. Coolgon's Command. Yeah, and I mistapped here. I'm doing good. How much mistapping can I do today? These Martyr of Sands are extremely annoying this game. Yeah, Gideon's whatever. Start the Coolgon's Command Chain here. Move a little bit faster. Return target creature from graveyard. Deals 2 damage to a target. Wrath of God. Well, that one's a kick in the junk. Alright, so interested in the Staticaster. Yeah, definitely probably want the Dreadbores. The mana leaks aren't the greatest as we go along here. Though having some copies of counterspells is nice. They're such a weird deck because they're a control deck, but they're not. Collective Brutality, Disdainful Strokes, Damnations. Because we're down on time, they have a huge amount of resource advantage, and, yeah. Sand's terrible, but I think we're going to have to keep this one. No, it's not a small creature mid-range deck. It's a small creature control deck. Martyr of Sands plus life gain plus a bunch of board sweepers is a control deck. They're a card advantage mono white deck with their card advantages in their creatures. Not the brightest idea to play out Martyr of Sands on one there, friend. Topping Thought Scour here. This is probably a bait spell, but we can't leave Martyr of Sands in play. Because I topped a Serum Visions and I wanted the Serum Visions. Ghost Quarter is extremely annoying. Bourbon Fox's list was prepared for a ton of creature decks like humans and such, and has a good bit of sideboard hate for big mana decks like Tron, etc. The problem is we're running into Lantern Control and then this deck. You know what? I'm just going to move on to the next match because I'm not interested in grinding through this nonsense. I'll be back in 1 minute. Alright, we're back. Well, the thing about Delver is much like Grixis Death Shadow, and then it's a tempo aggro deck that can play some control elements. The way his deck is set up, and this is part of the reason why we're doing this stream, is his deck was set up to take on humans, Hollow One. So you're set up with a lot of early removal and a lot of like anti-creature elements. But the problem is, okay, playing against Lantern Control. Lantern Control, you need a lot of anti-artifact elements. You probably need like 4 to 5 anti-artifact cards in your 75 to have a reasonable chance against beating Lantern. This list only has the 2 Kolaghan's commands. I actually cut a 3rd Kolaghan's command from his original list to get the 18th land in because of the Magic Online shuffler issues. The mono-white Martyr of Sands deck is a deck that plays control elements and plays creatures. So you need to leave in your creature kill spells so you don't get run over by their Martyr of Sands into either the Squadron Hawk beatdown or the Serra Ascendant beatdown plan. But you also have to commit a lot to the board to deal with to overwhelm their creatures, and you run right smack into a Wrath of God. So in our main way of leveraging, oh, this hand is risky as heck. I think we're gonna try it because we have the double Delver draw, and if we hit even with a second land, is this hand all that good? I think because we have the double Delvers, we're gonna try it. Hopefully we draw a second land. Looks like we're up against Death Shadow. So I guess I grab Watery Grave here. I'm not saying you do, but at the same time, Janshavik, yeah, they have a Fatal Push, whatever. We gotta play our strategy, so. Hopefully we hit a second land off of this. Some nights you just shouldn't play Magic. It's kind of feeling like one of those nights. Do you have another Stubborn Denial? Alright, we're bottoming the Mana Leak. Bottoming Fatal Push since we're fetching anyway. Another Fatal Push. Probably a Terminate would be my guess. Dismember. Alright. Looks like we are up against the Death Shadow variant. Question is, are they blue-black or are they just straight some more options in our graveyard for our Tasigur here. Alright, Lightning Bolt's not horrible. Go ahead, get rid of Thought Scour, Delver and that. Okay. But it's probably going to flash back Dismember. Just going to put them to 7? That's a little risky. Target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Our opponent doesn't have a big threat here. They're just dead because there's no... guess they could have Collective Brutality to stay alive, theoretically. I think Bolt's just going to be good enough here. G-Mag Angler, huh? Let's try Bolt to just end this. Alright. So, we're up against Death's Shadow, huh? Definitely want the Dreadbores. Probably consider the Damnations. I don't know that we want Thoughtseize. Spell Snare only really counters, yeah, I don't think the opponent played that all that well, but look, who knows what their hand was. And honestly, if they thought we were, most Delver variants didn't play a ton of burn. Most have played like more fatal pushes than bolts in the past. So, question is, what do we think about this 60? I like the Dreadbores and the Terminates. Basically, we're becoming the control deck on the draw game 2. Damnation's the only card that I'm like kind of questioning. Like, Delver's fine, but Delver dies to like literally all of their removal, so... and doesn't get any value. Yeah, Spellbomb would have been good. That was a good point. This is a mulligan. This hand's okay, but whatever we get is kind of garbage. Opponent's going to be able to Thoughtseize and take away most of our hand. I think having a 4 of in each is probably correct. Am I getting Thoughtseized on one? Oops, Serum Visions. Alright. See what they do with their bottom one, top one. The problem with, like, Thought Scouring them is I'd be feeling Delve. So it's not necessarily a good thing to actually Thought Scour them, even though they left a card on top. They're Thought Scouring me. Alright, that's a weird one. Surgical Extraction, Fatal Push. Alright, opponent's going really deep with the BS. We play both. So you're playing Death Shadow, knowing full well it's probably dead. Alright, cool. Snapcaster Mage is not horrible here. It's a decent chance our opponent's got something like... And... guess we can't get back Searcher's Countess, so we'll just get rid of that one. Probably losing either Snapcaster or Kolagon's command here. Lose the Snapcaster, another Death Shadow. Answer your question, Space Marine, that's why the card's in the deck. Because it's a lot easier when you're filling your graveyard this much to actually leverage it. Alright. One's got 2 cards in hand. We're not making any moves with a Thought Scour until they actually force us to. They're dismembering a... It can. That's why I made the comment that as many Delve stuff as we're playing, it can be a problem. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. That's annoying. It's a pretty good rip from our opponent. Could they possibly have here? Vendilion Click? Dismember. Really? Alright, so we're both kind of out of resources here. You play it with Vial Smasher? What is it with Vial Smasher, Jan? Let's play Blood Crypt out. Hard to say. I'm not terribly familiar with that deck in Legacy, so... Kira? Alright. I think I'm interested in both these cards. And I just play... Big Fat Fish and see if you can draw an answer. Okay, so opponent's dead. Cool. Opponent killed themselves with their fetch land. Yeah. I'm at least familiar with the deck, but I don't really remember what Vial Smasher does, if we're being completely honest. So. And the opponent scoops it up. Legacy. I Legacy because I can play him to Torak. Oh, good old Himmy. So I'd like to play first. Sand has no cantrips and only one real play, so it's a mulligan. Sand at least has a cantrip. Not a whole lot better, though. Spell Snare. We'll put that on top, see if we want to draw it. Infect? Most of these random, like, if it's Infect or if it's, like, some type of random mid-range deck, it seems reasonable. Suspecting it's Infect, though. Just from the land base. Glistener Elf, huh? That's unfortunate. I was kind of hoping they'd play like a, Bolt's not a bad one here. Gurmag Angler, huh? Here. Alright, so our opponent gets to... Huh? So we're gonna get hit for 5 here. Just wasted 2 removal spells. Weird. Claw mirror. That one's annoying. Of course. Lose to a matchup we're not really supposed to lose. Alright. So, in fact, want that. Want those. We want collective brutality. Probably interested in these dread boars. Sometimes. It's possible I'm interested in these thought seizes. His counterspells aren't at their best in this matchup. Spell Snare's alright against specifically the whatchamacallit. The whatchamadoo and the whatchamacallit. Cards are we not interested in here? It's possible the Damnations are just too far down the rabbit hole. Dreadbore might be a little overkill. And maybe 1 Delver. Yeah, I was just thinking it's too slow. Sand's fine-ish. Probably means they have multiple threats, would be my guess. It's the only reason they'd take that risky of a line. It'd be interesting. The problem with that is there's only so much room for we can try it, Jankovic. The problem is if you look at the oddball decks, Yes. So opponent obviously had a very threat-heavy hand. The reason you play Infect is because very good Infect players can navigate through the difficult matchups and then have very easy matchups against things like Storm, KCI, Tron. Well, that's a good one. So now we're in a really awkward situation. Opponent knows they gotta play around both Fatal Push and means we're probably dead here if they're being this aggressive. They have a defense or a Cross over here. Yep. Delver is not having a very good run this game. It's about as nicely as I can put it. So challenge like against the odds, you said theme watchers. I mean, we can try it, Jansovic. The problem is when you have such a diverse base, some people only literally watch a channel for specific decks, like, you know, some type of standard deck. Some people only watch a channel for, like, modern or standard, or, so it's likely going to be, like, the same 5 to 7 people trying to build the decks. Which is fine. It's just, sounds fine, I guess. Let's try to close this out with a 3-2 at least. We're keeping. Yep. We got some burn deck. well, huh. Much as I want to cast a Serum Visions, I think I need to hold up Lightning Bolt against something like Eidolon. So, I think we've run into too much work deciding. Looks like our opponent's on the creature heavy draw here. See if I get popped with a spell here. Foz will make it burn. Oh, you guys are entertaining, if nothing else. Our opponent's sequencing is horrible. Boros Charm's like the last card you try to resolve. Or one of the last, especially against a deck that probably has some amount of counter spells. Yep, there's Eidolon. Suspend Riftbolt. Yep. So play this tapped. Bolt the Eidolon. What's up, Foz? How you doing? Fatal Push is fine. Probably interested in keeping Serum Visions on top. Gonna say Foz has quite a wide. I'd say Foz has the widest range of decks any of us play. Sometimes I swear you just like to chill and hang out. So what are the odds that our opponent has Searing Blaze here? Fortunately, probably pretty good. I just can't sit back and play nothing though, so yep. I'm guessing. Wow, they don't have Searing Blaze. That's really good for us. Don't want another Fatal Push. Definitely want Tasigur. Just gonna play this. Steam Vents tapped. It's not the fact of the 2 life gain. It's the fact that a fully charged Collective Brutality is a 3 for 3. And a fully powered Collective Brutality often is getting a creature, a spell, and 2 life, which means often you're taking a consistent source of damage off the battlefield. I finally drew a Searing Blaze against our Elemental, sure. So often it's like 3 spells in 1. Only having 1 black source here kind of sucks, but such is life. You do, but often the thing people don't understand the most about Burn is a resource deck. Burn is very dependent on having all of their resources. Well, I'm feeling very sheepish for getting rid of my young pyromancer now. Force cards out of our opponent's hand. Looks like their last card... Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like their last card was a land. The fact that that was Lightning Helix is pretty brutal. And we're going to have to burn our bolt here, which kind of sucks. I would say Timely Reinforcements qualifies as a almost exclusively anti-burn card. Firewalker's usually good out of the... Am I getting Boros Charmed here? Wow. You ever just have one of those leagues that's like... You ever just have one of those leagues? Alright, Brutality and Counter Squall are really our only cards here. Not really interested in Thought Seizes, not really interested in Dreadbores. Static Caster is not really what we're after. Spell Snare is perfectly fine. Mana Leak's perfectly fine. Logic Knot's perfectly fine. Maybe trim like a Kulagon's Command. Sometimes it happens. Get this collective... Murder's Cut out of the deck. I guess we keep his hand. Sucks that I have to fetch shock on one. Just to get Delver out there. Not exactly what you want to be doing against Burn. Firewalker is usually in the... it's usually played in the Humans deck, and it's usually played in the Burn sideboard if you're expecting the mirror match. Those are the two main... Well, no, sorry. Humans doesn't even play it. They usually play Core Firewalker. Not Core Firewalker. Auriok Champion. Lava Spike to the face. Sure. Death and Taxes usually plays, Death and Taxes usually plays Burrington Forge Tender as their choice anti-burn spell. At least the mono-white version. Because it also protects them against red sweepers in controlling matchups. So... Nope, no luck with Delver this game. Blood Moon's pretty reasonable against Burn. I would definitely say that. See where this Rift Bolt goes. You can... Modern is a format where you can beat basically any deck you want to beat. If you want to beat Burn, generally speaking, most strategies can beat Burn. If you want to beat Jund, Jund's a little bit more difficult to hate out. But if you want to beat Jund, play Tron. Hey, we finally get to flip Delver. So I think we're actually going to win a game against Burn. Granted, we were on the play, which helps. Shock it up, shock it in, let me begin. Depends, Janshevik. Some versions of... You forget, some versions of Jund have played Blood Moon before. So it all depends. Blood Moon is such a cheesy card in some games. Like, some games it wins, some games it just makes everybody miserable. If you have something, now's the time, friend. Probably a Lightning Helix. GG. Oh, that felt rough. And that was the easy game. That was the easy game. Don't think there's anything in their sideboard that we really want. Murderous Cut over a Terminate, maybe. Tron is just... I don't know. Tron is a weird deck that is... Yeah, I guess we keep against the opponent going to 6. It keeps their 5-card hand. See what they have on 1 here. Probably gonna get Goblin Guided, I'm guessing. Haven't seen one yet. Or Suspend Riftbolt. Yep, suspend Riftbolt. Alright, so I guess I fetch Island, play Delver on 1. As awkward as that is on our mana. We don't have any spell-based or interaction for spells, so we have to be careful in that regard. See if they go after Delver here. It's good for us, ish. I'm not going to play around our opponent having anything this turn cycle. I just want to get search for his Kanta. Random 7, or you pick 3 cards for your starting hand. Depends on the deck. Do they seriously have Destructive Revelry? Are you kidding me? Why would you bring in Destructive Revelry against Delver? Yep, I just got Destructive Revelried. Yeah, but most Delver decks don't play Search. That's why I'm just, like, dumbfounded, like... Not that there are a ton of Delver decks running around, but it's just, like... Such a narrow card for the matchup, though. Like, how many copies of Destructive Revelry did you bring in? Now we have no pressure, which really sucks, because giving burn time is not where we want to be. I'd like a Gurmag Angler, or... I want to have Boros Charm or something here? Sure, whatever. Wow. I think we're going to lose to no pressure in play. Mana Leak's almost past the point of where it's useful. To keep a clock off of them, pretty much. We've been lucky our opponent's sequencing is terrible. Alright, we're drawing all over reactive cards, but, I mean... Because we beat them last game by... Depends on what your deck's trying to do. Wow. Uh... Mana Leak in general is a bad card in Modern, especially if you're a deck that's planning to go late. Theoretically, Delver doesn't want to go late, so just say Foz. Well, I'm drawing every counterspell in my deck, but I'm drawing absolutely no pressure, so I guess, despite the odds, them bringing in, that Destructive Revelry was probably the smartest thing they could have done. It's not a card you want to play in blue-white control. Sure. I think we're dead, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, maybe not. Awkward. Moment when throwing your bolt at your opponent's face, now it comes back to bite you in the hind end. This is Searing Blaze. It is. How can you play this deck, Scorpion Airsoft? Yeah, there was no reason to throw the bolt. Just impatience on my part. Not that it really matters the way we've particularly drawn. Magic Online you can download. I guess we'll take a Supreme. Magic Online you can download from Wizards of the Coast website, and they're also working on developing a newer program called Magic Arena to play Magic as well. They're not known for their patience. Thanks, Space Marine, thanks. So, you can go to Wizards of the Coast website, download Magic Online. It's $10 to open an account. It depends on how much money you're interested in pumping into it, honestly. If you're just starting out, then yeah, there are other programs out there that allow you to play for free. Magic Online tends to be more for more competitive players or people that want to risk a little bit of actual cash. So, I was talking about the opponent. Oh. Well, to be fair, I was a little bit impulsive with that bolt. I should have held the bolt, especially since I have Pyromancer in my deck. But, thoughts on this deck. So, like any other mid-range deck in Modern, be it Jund, be it Delver, be it Grixis Shadow, be it, to a lesser extent, Martyr Pyromancer, what you built your deck to beat is what you beat. What you don't build your deck to beat, you lose against in Modern a lot of the times. So this deck was heavily slanted towards creature decks. Decks like Affinity, decks like Humans, decks like Death and Taxes, decks like Collected Company decks, decks like Elves, decks like Counters Company. And a lot of the sideboard hate is for big mana decks like Valakut and Tron. There's quite a bit of sideboard hate for Storm. So this deck was heavily slanted towards what you would probably consider most of the top tier Modern decks, which is fine. If you want to be Humans, if you want to be Hollow One, if you want to beat, a lot of those decks, you got to have a lot of removal in your deck. You got to have threats, and this deck's good at executing that. However, you're softer to non-creature based control decks like Lantern. You don't have enough hate cards for Burn. You'd probably need a couple more Collective Brutalities or some Dispels. That said, we could have won the Burn matchup. Ironically, our opponent bringing in Destructive Revelry probably won them the game. Beyond that, yeah, I mean, you have to pick and choose your battles in Modern. You generally can't beat everything with every deck. Every deck has a weakness. In fact, its removal, generally speaking, has issues with removal-heavy decks. Decks like Storm have issues against decks like an Infect and Burn. Decks like Jund have issues with decks like Tron. Decks like Control. I don't think he was sniped. Guys, I'm not a big enough streamer to start getting sniped yet. And besides, I guess my screen name does kind of coincide with my channel, but I don't think they were sniping. So, in Janshavik, Delver and Death Shadow are trying to do the same thing, but they're trying to do it in different... Sniping is a term in which somebody is... Another term you might have heard of is ghosting. I'm not sure... It's also possible, Foz, that we showed it off... I'd have to go back and watch... But did we show it off of a Thought Scour or something in one of the first two games? I'm wondering if we showed it in the first game because our opponent fetched green mana too. In game 2. So I'm wondering if we showed it to him off a Thought Scour or something. They could also have, as goofy as this sounds, another card they might have brought it in against is they might be used to people bringing in Damping Sphere against them. Yeah, in game 2, they definitely fetched Shocked for Stomping Ground. In a matchup where I had Delver and Snapcaster Mage in play already. So that was a little risky. But it's kind of hard. Like it's hard to say where this deck's place is in the meta right now. Like I don't think, obviously Delver isn't the best position since Gitaxian Probe got banned, because Young Pyromancer plus Gitaxian Probe's pretty good. But I think it was just as much as the matchups we ran into. They did game 1 as well. I don't think that was a fetch shock. I think that was just one of the lands they drew in game 1. I don't think they fetched for it game 1. I think it was just a land they happened to have drawn. They could also potentially have had Targa's Command in their deck. It's unlikely, but they could have. It's been banned for what, approximately 2 years? January of 2016? It's been banned for about as long as Fatal Push has been in the format. Because that was one of the things that led to the downswing of Infect. So... Because the last time it was big, it was getting pushed by Kevin Jones, and he had Gitaxian Probe and Young Pyromancer in his list. That was before he started really hammering home on Jeskai. So, alright, well, I fulfilled my obligation of playing Grixis Delver for one of the YouTube viewers, or one of the people in the comments. I honestly think that was a poor sample size, but usually with Delver, when I played Delver in the past, I usually end up going like 2-3 or 3-2. So it's a deck that has a lot of type play to it. You have to have the right tuned deck list. The fact that I only pick it up like every 2 or 3 months, it's kind of hard to like I made a lot of little sequencing errors. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are gonna later on, the Delver aficionados are gonna be like, you screwed up this, you did that wrong, you did this wrong. It's just like decks like this have so many decisions and so many sequencing errors. Like the glaring one that comes to mind was that Bolt against the Burn player the turn before we drew Young Pyromancer. So in the end, it wouldn't have mattered, but little plays like that can matter on a deck like this. Okay. So, trying to think. So there's a couple of... So Janshavik brought up the idea of having a against the odds or build around a theme kind of contest thing for the channel. I think that's an interesting idea. Yeah, but they'd drawn that within the first couple of turns. But the problem is I need creatures to win, so... No, I've just been playing whatever lists people send me. I think what Jan was suggesting was a little bit different. Like, just trying to create, like, really off-the-wall decks and see what sticks. So one of the decks, I'm sure some of you guys saw this at the end of yesterday's stream. So one of the decks, O'Doyle and I were kind of working on a little bit at the end of yesterday's Grixis stream was this Ponza-esque Dragons deck. I suppose, Foz, but I only had so many counter spells in the deck. I only had... It all depends on, like, what the ideas are that I come up with. Like, especially with M19, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of the Ponza decks have moved away from LD, honestly. Like, some of them are still running, like, some Stone Rains and such. Other ones have gone... When Bloodbraid came out, a lot of the decks went to, like, more of a mid-range creature deck with, like, Chandras and, Blood Moons, and then, like, a couple copies of Stone Rain or Molten Rain in the main deck. And everything else was just, like, creature-based. That's kind of what this deck is doing. So the thought process behind this deck, and I'm not sure if this is the deck I'm gonna play when I come back at like 10:30, or if I'm gonna play like one of the standard decks. But the thought process behind this deck is to leverage cards like Sarkhan and Chandra to play the powerful dragons like Thunderbreak Regent, Glorybringer, Stormbreath. Tarka is just kind of a random top end to have. When you have this much mana acceleration, you need like one big bomb in your deck. Like the regular Ponza lists play usually Inferno Titan in that slot. But the thought process behind this deck is like turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Sarkhan, turn 3 like Thunderbreak Regent, Glorybringer, or Stormbreath. And you have like Tireless Trackers, Bloodbraid Elves, Chandras to grind some card advantage. Then obviously Blood Moon being Blood Moon. So this deck tends to do fairly well against the fair mid-range decks and Tron. At least obviously the non-dragon version of it. And you tend to be a little bit weak to spell-based combo, storm, that kind of stuff. Or anything your lightning bolts are pretty poor against. So I could play this one later. On the sideboard, I have one Temple Garden in the list for a couple Dromokas to go along with Sarkhan and Utopia Sprawl and Birds. Couple of Abrades, couple Ancient Grudges, so we got a pretty good Artifact Hate, got some Molten Rains for some land destruction. Bonfire of the Damned with this much mana acceleration is usually a pretty good sweeper while you're not sweeping up your own elves. Dromoka is pretty decent against control and against things like burn and such. And then a couple dampening spheres. Just waiting to see what you guys come up with in chat here. Oh. It's on me to come up with the ideas, huh? Yeah, the idea's good. He's the one who plays it. Alright. I've got one for you. It kind of fits in with some of the stuff we've been playing on stream. So, and I don't know if this is really viable, but it's kind of a goofy one. The new Nicol Bolas in a modern deck. Just as kind of a starting off idea. Got a week. Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Nicol Bolas Ravager, the one that just came out. The 4-mana creature that turns into a planeswalker with 7 mana. There's plenty of design space for it. It's not the fastest card in Modern. There's a lot of different directions you can go with it. You can play it in a control deck. You can play it in some type of like Grixis mid-range or aggro deck. You can turn it into a Dragon Tribal deck. Basically an 11-mana planeswalker. But you also want to be able to play him as a 4-mana creature that has some effect on the game too. So can't just look at him as 11-mana planeswalker. I think the decks that can leverage him the best are probably ones that can take advantage of both sides. And I will make a short video on the channel to give other people the opportunity to try to participate. I'll bring it up a couple times. Whichever. It's up to you guys how you want to go with it. I don't really care. Because if you guys hadn't noticed, I don't like losing, but at the same time, I enjoy playing decks that are fun, even if I'm losing. Like, the reason I quit that, yes, in Modern. Not in everybody's playing him in Standard. Why would I want a Standard deck? I mean, I would do Legacy if I had access to the cards, but I don't, so Modern is the format of choice for this little project. Just because Standard, people are already exploring like every conceivable Nicol Bolas shell they could possibly can. And besides, most of you guys play Modern in some form or other anyway, so I figure that would be fair common ground for you three especially. We sit at the big kids table. We don't play Standard. Oh, one of these times, Foz, we're gonna get a real Standard aficionado. I'm not even sure it's viable in. I'm not even sure it's viable in Modern, Janshevik. That's part of the whole point of this project. Do I think he's playable? Probably. Do I think he's great in Modern? Probably not. Generally speaking, 4-mana spells that don't automatically win the game don't tend to do fantastic in Modern. But I like the card, so I want to see if it's possible. Fair enough, fair enough. I happen to like Standard and Modern, so I don't generally have an issue with either format. I'd play more Legacy if I could. Maybe once things get rolling on the channel, we'll do more Legacy too. Because there's a lot of weird stuff I want to make in Legacy. The problem with Legacy is you can only really play it competitively on Magic Online. So, like the rest of this stuff, you can like play in like friendly leagues or 2-man queues and not really get kind of raked over the coals value-wise. So, I agree. Legacy is a lot of fun. The only problem with it is you have to have the cards, number one, and number two, on Magic Online, the only way you can reliably play it is in competitive leagues. So you're basically setting 12 bucks on fire just for funsies. No, it's only competitive. In fact, I can actually pull up the various leagues. Friendly Standard League, Competitive Standard League, Friendly Modern League, Competitive Modern League, Friendly 1 vs. 1 Brawl League, Competitive Legacy, Competitive Vintage, Friendly Pauper, and Friendly Commander. Why is Pauper friendly only and Legacy competitive only? Whatever. They don't play, they practice. I know, Foz, but it still would be nice to have the option of playing Legacy for $8 instead of 12. But I guess that's why the Vintage and Legacy leagues are competitive only. Nope. No, I don't need it explained. $30 and $50 decks versus $500 and $700 and $1,000 decks. Yeah, I understand the concept. Alright, so Grixis Delver, quick wrap up. Yes, Pauper, really. Grixis Delver is a fine deck. Our deck was not tuned to beat a lot of the decks we played against. We didn't have enough tools against Burn. We didn't have enough tools against Lantern. Martyr Control, Martyr Proc Control. We potentially could have won the match, but it's just such a grind fest. It wasn't worth it. Beating the pseudo Death Shadow versus Grixis Delver Mirror, that was pretty fun. And then what was our other matchup against? Infect. Sometimes when the Infect player has all the protection spells, they have all the protection spells. A little bit of missequencing on the part of me when I played the Staticaster main phase. I should have just waited, forced them to maybe play around the Search for Ascant activation, although it just seemed like our opponent was just going to jam regardless. Because they had, 3 creatures, we had to kill the first 2, and then the third one they have, multiple protection spells, so they can just afford to jam. And our hand didn't really line up against it with, 2 lands and a Fatal Push. So, sometimes you win some, you lose some. A lot of that's how you tune your deck, what you want to beat. 2 minimum. A minimum of 2 Nicol Bolas Ravager. And you can include other Bolases if you want, but he's probably the most playable in Modern. I mean, someone could figure out how to play Nicol Bolas Godfair on Modern and make it viable. That'd be entertaining. But no, Nicol Bolas Ravager, minimum of 2 in the deck. That's the only deck requirement. And you have to be able to reliably get him in play. So, doesn't even mean you have to be able to necessarily cast him consistently. You can do stuff like, if you were to go that route, through the breaching or reanimating him. So you don't even have to be able to cast him. But it would be preferred. Can be competitive, it can just be a quirky fun deck, whichever. Doesn't matter. God ain't even viable in standard. I would disagree with that statement, but he's not the best option. I've seen him see a little bit of play in Grixis Control when Grixis Control was a thing. Before Esper and Blue-White got all their tools and Energy was kind of a thing. He was played in like a blue-red based control deck, splashing black. He's also seen a little bit of... Fine, I will! I'm not saying he's going to be good, I'm just saying he's playable. I think the format's gotten a little too fast for him to be a main deckable card. There, is that a good enough split decision, Space Marine? I'm sure I can come up with a list that he is playable in. In fact, I know of a list in which there is one Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh that 5-0'd in the current standard format. So I will look that list up and play it a couple of games. Alright guys, I'm going to take a short break here. I got like one quick chore to do plus walking some dogs, so I'll be back about 10:30. I'm not really sure what I'm going to play when I get back. I'll have to think about it. Probably not going to be modern. You know what? Actually, I'm going to play some more of Foz's Taking Turns deck when I get back. Just because I wanted to play a couple more matches with that deck and see how it does. Because that seemed like a lot of fun. But, then tomorrow I'll play some Standard. So, alright. That's cool with everyone. I'll be back about 10:30. Play a little bit of Foz's Blue-Black Taking Turns deck, and kind of go from there. So, be back in about 45 minutes. Catch everybody later.